So, Shelley, firstly, a massive warm welcome onto the Soul Sync podcast.
It's great to be here, Jason. It's lovely to meet you.
Well, it's most wonderful to have you here. So, first of all, I want to talk to you, go back in time to your childhood, because when I was reading the show notes that you very kindly sent over to me, you had an awareness of spirit since childhood. Tell us about that.
Well, I was just when I was completely innocent of it all. I didn't realise when I was that child, obviously, but I'd often spend a lot of time in my own bedroom doing my art or playing, and I had these imaginary. Well, I thought they were imaginary friends. It started like that, and of course, obviously, as you realise that actually, no, they weren't, and and when I look back, I would see occasionally spirit children. And then, when you're in a group at school, I mean, I was sociable, like all most children, shy but sociable. But and I'd look again and think they're gone again. And I didn't really understand and never feared it really. I always knew that we lived after this life, but I didn't get it or understand it. And I remember one time, I don't know, I'd been to a friend's and I was walking home, and I got this voice that told me to be careful. And
Mm.
I just knew that I was being followed. And so I didn't look, and I carried on walking. I don't know what age I would have been, about 8 or 9, that sort of age. And I can remember feeling like that and feeling really quite anxious. And then I was led, and I didn't go home. And I went into my town, which is not the town I'm in now. And and it was like, go in the shop. So I went in this shop. Well, I went in this shop, it's like a newsagent's. It's not there now. And I remember looking out the window and I was like, oh, and there was this guy was following me. And I thought, no, you're a youngster. But this voice within my mind was so strong. And then it was like, go towards the police station and you'll see. And I can see it now. And I remember walking down and I could see him in the reflection of the windows of the shops. And he was. So, and then, of course, by the time I got towards the police station, I actually went to the door of the police station and then he disappeared. And I was like, that was quite a profound experience.
Mm.
And then I found out at a later date that actually wasn't a pleasant man. And I think he'd actually been arrested for doing things like that. I can't really remember it all, but but yeah, I felt very fortunate. But again, I didn't understand it. I just trusted it, as you do when you're naive as a child. So that was one experience. So
Wow.
yeah, and then another one is I could tell you plenty, I suppose, if I
Oh,
really.
please do. We like hearing these
Yeah,
stories. We love
um,
them here.
yeah, and I remember in the house we lived in was an old farmhouse, but it was in a built-up area now, and there used to be all sorts going on in that house, knocks and bangs. And my parents, they weren't disbelievers, but they weren't spiritualists. They didn't understand it. And they used to say, and the dog used to suddenly stand at the bottom of the stairs and start growling, and all sorts of strange things. You'd hear the front door slam in the middle of the night, and you'd hear people walking up the stairs, and bizarre. Of course, I just,
Spooky.
as I got older, thought it's haunted. But I remember laying in bed this one night, and this lady in old, like, how can I be? When they used to wear these, like, what I call tea cozies on the head,
Oh, yes. I think
like,
my man
and
has
the
one of those.
candle and those little cream cotton long dress things, nightgowns. She came out of one of my walls, and I was awake because I'd only just got into bed, and stared at me with this candle in her hand, and then just disappeared out the other one. Of course, I got out of bed completely freaked out, ran into my brother's room, went, he says, you look like you've just seen a ghost. And I went, I just did. It was like,
Ah,
what's going on there? So there was some really strange happenings there, but we got used to it. I'm not saying it was haunted or anything. I just feel that there were spirit visitations, really, and I was obviously more sensitive to it than I actually realised or knew. So that was another one. So
So you were having a lot of these, and what a profound experience to have that happen. You know, with the man and the police station. It sounds like
mm,
you literally had an intervention there. Um,
yes,
so you were having these experiences, and it sounds like a lot of them when you were a child. Um, and then you started at 15 years. I guess, did it carry on as well through your teenage years, these experiences, or did they kind of stop at a certain
I think they
age?
kind of, I probably was distracted, didn't listen to it a lot as teens. But I tell you, I did. I know you're going to talk about when I'm 15, but if we just skip to probably about the age of 19, I was out with friends and I'd lost them. And one of my friends said, "You stay with the taxi," because back then you only got taxis till a certain time, and this was in the city, and I'll go and look for them. I'm like, okay. Well, the taxi guy encouraged me to sit down in the taxi, and he locked the door, and that was another quite not pleasant experience. And somehow, again, I got the voice, and I knew the words to say to get myself out of the car. I got out of the car. So
Wow.
mm. But again, didn't understand it, didn't know as it was spirit or anything, but I knew the words and how to get out because without going into detail, but you can understand it was not a pleasant experience. And then I fortunately found my friend and we found our other friends and then we got our way home. But yeah, so I do feel I'm very fortunate actually that spirit have looked after me in many ways.
But they certainly have. So you started age 15 as an apprentice, all things hair and beauty, whole
Yeah,
life ahead of you. And another so another thing that sort of stood out to me was it sounded to me like, as we all are at 15, we're sort of throwing ourselves into our career, starting to find our way in the world. But then you got to 18 years old and your granddad passed.
did, yes. Bless him.
Yeah. And it, it sounded to me like that was another catalyst for lots of experiences.
Yes.
Um, Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was on holiday, which was in Crete, I think I was, and he'd passed, and the funeral had happened all in the time I was away. So that was really hard for me because I was very fond of the world of him, actually. We knew he wasn't well, but my grandmother kept it very quiet how seriously ill he was.
Right.
But after that, I just had experiences where I just felt him around and he was watching and supporting. I just knew. But one particular, without going into details of it, it wasn't a good time in my life. I would have been about around 25, 26, and I was out because I was got my daughter then, and I was kind of juggling trying to work. Anyway, I was driving along the dual carriageway, and I was in a very bad place, like a very difficult situation where I couldn't see a way out. And for that time, I don't know, it was a blank moment, bizarre really, where I just put my foot down and was going really fast and just let go of the steering wheel. And all of a sudden I was aware of my granddad in the car. And I could see him in the not wing mirror, but the mirror. And I just heard in my head, "Put your hands back on the steering wheel." And I'm just like, no, I can't get out of this situation I'm in. Not that I did anything wrong. It's just it was a very bad time for me. And then all of a sudden he just gave me images of my daughter. And of course I love her dearly. And I thought, what on earth was I thinking? And I put my hands back on the steering wheel. I mean, it didn't happen for minutes and minutes, I don't know how
Mm.
long, but that was quite a profound experience. And obviously I did put my hands back on the steering wheel and I come back to reality with a big thump, my baby girl, I don't want to leave her. What on earth was I
Mm.
thinking? So yeah. So that was one where like I said, I see my granddad in the back of my car. So yeah.
It literally sounds like you've been saved a lot from
That's what I'm saying. I've
spirit,
been
one way or another, you know.
yeah, I've been very looked after in many ways. Yeah.
So, when was it then that you started to rather than just because it sounds to me like in your childhood you was very accepting of it, you never questioned it, you went into your teens and 20s again, not questioning it, not necessarily accepting it. When was it that you know you sort of decided to think, hang on a minute, I want to explore this a bit more and start to take perhaps control and you know, start developing your mediumship? Well, what age was you and how did that happen?
Oh, I would have been in my 20s, and like I say, and I was become a single parent by then, and that's where it become. Well, obviously, my daughter, my work was more the main importance, but I ended up going to fairs, mind, body, and spirit fairs. I was having readings. I just kept being drawn to it, and then I had some tarot cards. I think I had some bought me. I used to do these readings, and it used to be profound, really, what I used to come out with. And of course, again, as I said in my writing, I didn't believe I was a medium. I knew there was spirit. I understood, I believed, but not in me at all. And then people would come to me later on seeking me out for readings, and I'm like, me. Um, so that aspect. So it was in my 20s that I started to seek it out. But as regards to my own development was later. It was more into my 30s. So yeah, because I knew there was more. So
Mm.
but
And in the notes, it sort of it looked like to me that it was in 2008 when
mm,
your mum passed away. That was again, it seemed to me like a catalyst for you to then.
it was, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Before then, I did do odd day workshops, courses, into mediumship, and then I come away thinking, well, I must have something. This is a naive, or I don't know what you want to call it, really. Not self-belief, really. So I was doing a lot of it then before and do readings. That all come about. And I kept dipping my toe, but obviously I had my responsibilities. So, and my daughter, and of course, obviously still having spiritual experiences in bizarre times. And yeah, and I'd come out with things with people randomly, and they're like, "How did you know that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So I just felt like I needed to say that to you, and so on. And then yes, cutting the whole story short, unless you want to go back a bit, which you can ask me. Um, I did keep hearing about the Arthur Findlay College, and in the end, I thought, right, let's have a look at this place. My daughter was a teenager, so I kind of had a little bit more independence, I suppose. She wasn't so reliant, and yeah, and I tried booking a course. The only name I knew, because I thought this college, I know no one, and the only name I knew was Tony Stockwell, and not particularly because God bless him that he's famous. I just knew that name, so I thought, oh, well, comfort blanket. I'll see if I can get on his because I know that name, and it was fully booked. I thought, oh well, it wasn't meant to be. And so many days later, the college emailed me and said, there is now a space if you would like to come on. I was like, oh. And I remember talking to my stepdad and saying, would you be all right to sort of stay with my daughter so I know she's safe and okay, even though she was like 15 then. Um, yeah, so there I did, packed my case, didn't know what on earth I was doing, driving down the M11 thinking, what am I doing? I'm going to this college at Stansted that I have no knowledge of. I don't know anyone apart from the name Tony Stockwell. What am I doing? And by the time I got nearly there, I thought, do you know what? If I don't like it, I'll just come home. I don't have to stay there, but
Mm,
I've got to go. And as soon as I walked in those doors, as many will say the same, I felt like I was home. It was like, there's something here that I needed to experience. And I had to share a room with three other ladies. They were very pleasant. And yeah, and I had an amazing week. And by the time I come out of that week, because it's so intense, as you know, at the college,
mm,
I went,
mm.
oh, and I had to demonstrate and everything. I was like, what am I doing? I was like, I had no idea. So I was like these student demonstrations, and I did it. And I remember one of the tutors saying to me, who was assessing it, "So you've not done this before?" And I went, "Oh." I was like, I was really natural, organic then with my, I just had no idea what I'm doing. I kept hearing about, you're in the power, they're out the power. And I thought, I don't know what this power thing is. I was really,
Oh, I'm still trying to work
completely,
out what the power is.
yes, I was completely naive to it all. And
Yes.
I laugh now when I think about it. But I come away knowing finally, yes, Shelley, you are a medium. And that was the real massive change for me, where I properly started to embrace my ability and my spirituality, I have to say. Yeah.
What was it that made you was there a particular moment or thing that happened that made you realize that indeed you are a medium?
I think because of all the classes and the demonstrating and by the end of the week, because it's so intense, fabulous, but intense, you know,
Mm.
I went in there like probably soul searching really. Um, and it wasn't because, oh, I want to be a medium, I want to be this. It was like, what's going on? And what is this with me?
The
Uh,
reason I'm laughing, Shelley, is because my experiences are exactly the same. It is intense.
yes.
I'm not used to. It was the first time that I'd had any kind of schedule. It's you wake up first thing in the morning, and I was even. I did work it when I went in September. I managed to work it quite nicely. That I'd go for me breakfast at 8, then I'd quickly come back for a half an hour nap. Then I'd wake up. I'd be trying to slot in naps whenever I could because it is tiring. It is long days. I'm not trying to put anyone off the college. It's the most magical
No.
place, but be ready. It's a long day because you're
Yeah.
learning
And
a lot.
yes, you are. But also, it really touches your soul.
Mm,
And it really can, in my experience, ignite a lot of healing
yeah.
as well within self-healing, self-discovery. And I know that the first few times I went to the college, did I cry? Not because anybody hurt me or upset me, because I've had wonderful experiences there. Everybody's always been fabulous. But I was like, when am I going to come to this place and not cry? It's
Oh
like,
yes, I've cried both times I've been there.
yeah. But then in the end, eventually I did it. But I realized,
Mm,
obviously, it's through the pathway, it was the self-healing. But it's also that enlightenment, I think, that you not so self-discovery, understanding. I mean, I say understanding, what my understanding now to then is evolved a lot as well, but
mm.
it's quite profound, really, isn't it? The experience of it all.
And now you're a tutor at the college.
I know.
Who would have thought?
I know.
So I want to ask you then. So where you are sitting now, obviously, now being a tutor, doing mediumship, here, there, and everywhere. What advice would you give to younger Shelley at the beginning of her mediumship journey at Arthur Findlay? What would you, is there like things that you've learned along the way in terms of your mediumship, which with the benefit of wisdom, time?
I could say on many levels about slow down, because once I grasped it, I was so excited. I was like, here, there, and everywhere. Slow down and enjoy the journey. And that I had to sort of sometimes go back and pick the gems up I'd missed, you know,
Hmm.
and I was so keen that I wanted to not rush, but wanted to do it more and more and more. And I realized actually, to enjoy the journey. And I recommend that to anybody. You know, yes, we have to learn the art of patience. Yes, sometimes it isn't always easy. And learning our development, because the self-development comes with that as well. We have to look at self as well,
Mhm.
for the progression for us. But definitely to enjoy it more. Oh, gee. I mean, I'm such a perfectionist. I
Oh,
suffered
me too.
lack of confidence, which I know a lot of people do, never had any self-belief, and they've been my major stumbling blocks. Because I realized, as I encourage in students, when they relax and enjoy it, that's where the beauty of their mediumship shines, and
Mm.
always be unique. Don't try to be somebody else. That's another important.
Yeah, I found myself doing the same when I first went and realized I could do it. It being connect with a spirit person. Well, it came so easily to me at the start because I think one, the spirit world dangled me a carrot, but secondly, I don't think I had any expectation then because I was just, oh, it just came to me because I was fearless. I didn't even know what I was doing, but it just worked. Then you go away and, the expectations. Why won't it work? Why isn't this happening? But I didn't have any of that at the first point. I want to sort of move on because a lot of people listen to this show who are on their own journey of unfoldment, trying to develop their psychic skills. So I want to sort of take us slightly away from focusing on your background right now to kind of go on more to some of the teaching that you do. So we'll use me as a guinea pig because when rather than describe uh, uh, an average soul sync listener. So a lot of the audience want to unlock their psychic abilities. Where would one start, and how does one start to, you know, unlock their intuition, Shelley?
Well, as you probably know anyway, the intuition's
Oh,
there.
don't assume I know anything, Shelley. Believe me.
But, we all have it, don't we? Intuition to some degree. Some people are more sensitive than others. I would highly recommend finding a development group,
Mhm.
an awareness group that's local to them or online, or even at the college. We often do things online where you can be guided through because the experiences you don't understand them. So I feel that, I mean, the spirit world are our teachers at the end of the day, but sometimes we need a teacher here to help facilitate, who can be aware of where you are within your mediumship or within your psychic awareness, your intuition, to work with that, to help unfold it, to understand it, because the mechanics of it, the foundation of it, I feel is very important as well. um and you can't be a medium and connect with the spirit world if you're not already worked with your psychic skills, your faculties, you know um definitely, so they're very important. And sometimes, that awareness of the intuition sometimes is very much needed for the recipient receiving a sit-in or a message. So it's the foundation, really. So it's
Mm.
getting good teaching, good guidance, as well. But what I also as would recommend is sitting in what we call the power, sitting in the power of the spirit. And it's like sitting in that meditative state where you set the intention to sit in the presence of the spirit world. But I also do encourage people as well to sit within your own soul energy, to understand you as
Could you
well.
explain the difference between them? And if someone wants to, I know we're not going to be able to get, you know, a whole Shelley Day workshop in this episode,
No.
but very simply, and I say simply, but first of all, if someone wants to sort of sit in their own soul energy, what's the process like for you? How do you do it? How do you teach other people to do it?
Well, I keep it simple because I think as human beings, human nature, we complicate things,
We do.
very much so. And you see, I always think the power of intention is everything. So if you go to sit, and you set the intention that you want to just sit within your own energy, it's as simple as that. If you want to sit for that of the power of the spirit, that's the intention you would set. All right.
Hmm.
Um, I always say to students, know your mediumship, because it's vitally important that you understand you, your energy, you as a person, on mentally, emotionally, physically, the whole uh, package, really, because your sensitivity, as you work more with the intuitive or that then we move it to, say, for mediumship, you become much more of a sensitive person in general. So, we hear this where we become sensitive and become sensitive to everybody's emotions, every environment, every, you know, experience. So we've got to know ourselves. And that's why the self-development should be very strongly alongside the spiritual development, shall we say, mediumship, psychic. Because I tell you why, because I learned the hard way, actually, in one way, because my sensitivity seemed to come out once I'd embraced that, okay, I've got this ability. My sensitivity was very heightened. And I remember walking into a local shop, and there was this family nearby, bless them, nothing wrong. I could, every aisle that was near me, I couldn't be near them. And please, I'm not saying they're bad or anything. I just couldn't cope with my sensitivity for whatever reason. And I came out of the shop and sat in the car and went, what on earth's going on? And there'd be times where I'd been somewhere and where there's been an argument. I couldn't cope with it. It had such an
Mm.
impact on my nervous system, I suppose. And then I realised that I'm so open that I'm picking up everything. And it's like, this is where you've got to understand self and be very grounded, mindful. Because if you're not careful, we can't be open all the time. We need to know, we have to be disciplined, because we need to look after ourselves, because it does have an
Mm.
effect on your nervous system and your emotions and so on. And it can trigger emotions. If you haven't looked at self and self healing and things that have triggered you in the past, when you're working with others, that's another aspect of it where, it can trigger. And if you've not dealt with that, you could end up projecting that to your sitter. I mean,
Mm.
maybe I've gone off track a little bit,
No,
but
no. Do you know what?
leads
You
from
you
one to
you
the
make
other.
an interesting point, because I have always been a very sensitive person, and very sensitive, particularly to sound, really affects me, especially when I'm in somewhere. And it's so funny. The first time after I came out of the Arthur Findlay College, I was driving home. Like we all do, I needed to stop and get some groceries, and I went into Sainsbury's, and I was so overwhelmed. I had to immediately leave because I was finding it like sensory overload. And I have noticed since I've been developing and I'm unfolding more, I am getting more sensitive and more sensitive. How do you advise people that because you mentioned about kind of, switching on and off, so to speak, but how do you advise people to navigate, life as they get more sensitive?
It's not easy. Self-mastery isn't easy. I think it's a light eternal, actually, progress there with that. But I was think, when I go back to this know your mediumship. When you know you as a person. And I'm going to
Yes.
say the good. I don't know so much bad, but and the indifferences, you know you. You know
Mhm.
your traits, whether you want to look at them as positive, negative, or whichever. Then when you start to feel emotions and sensitivities that you actually know that aren't yours, because you become more self-aware, then you can't stop yourself, I believe, feeling it, sensing it, picking it up because of our sensitivity, but you become then the observer of those energies, those emotions, and you realize they're not yours. So then you
Mm.
become detached and the observer, rather than allowing them emotions to consume you. And sometimes just the power of the breath, just giving yourself a moment, take a breath and go, they're not mine. And I like to keep things simple. It's not always easy, I will say, but to me, that's a simple practice. And that's why you find often, I know for me personally, I can be in with people. I love people. I love being around students. But I do like to be on my own so I can gather my energy and be in my own space. Um,
Mm.
and you say that sensitivity of when you come out of the college, it really is a sensitive. sensitivity overload. And that's why I always think it's always good to have some time to yourself when you get home.
Mm.
I did, especially early days, because I had to, because I was like, I'm sensitive to everything. I walk in a client's house and my granddad walked with me, it's like from the spirit world, it's like, oh, back, need to
Well, I
ground.
think it's an interesting point, isn't it? The sensitivity, and I think that. Well, I almost went starving, Shelley, when I left the college. I couldn't go into any shops. I was so sensitive. But I do like you, like you said. I like being around people, but I also do need a lot of time by myself. Like even like sharing a room with someone, I really struggle to share a hotel room because I need that me time. I need to shut the door and just have time by myself. It was quite funny actually because a few weeks ago, someone pulled a tarot card. No, they worked out my tarot card for life, which is like my life card, and they pulled it out, and it was the Hermit, and I was a bit upset that I'd got such a solitary card at first. But then the more as the days went on, I thought, no, I understand why I'm the hermit card. But at first, I didn't like being the hermit card because I thought this isn't what I want to be, the quiet solitude hermit. Kind of moving on then to mediumship. What are, in your experience of being a teacher, what are the common sort of hurdles people come up against that stop them from developing?
Confidence. I think confidence is a big one. And I really do understand that because I've battled that myself very much. Yes, that is one of the hurdles, definitely. But also, when people don't get it quite right, then they, as we often, you've probably heard this more than once, the spirit world's laundrette must have that many towels in it, where people have thrown the towel
I haven't
in.
heard
Go
this. No.
away. Have you not? Oh,
No.
yeah, because that's it, not doing it. It's too hard. Da, 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 many people. And I've got near there in the past, but you just keep getting back in the saddle because what we do makes such difference. And that's my passion as well with being as the teacher, is to encourage, to nurture people. Because that's what I said to you earlier. When people feel comfortable, when they feel that they're in a supportive environment, that's when they blossom more.
Mm.
And another one is that you say that's a hurdle, expectations and what they think the evidence should be or how it should work, and it doesn't work. The spirit knows what's needed for us
It's
to
my
unfold.
biggest one, and I only realised recently, and I think my expectation, the reason that holds me up so much, is a lot of the time I've just been. So went to Arthur Findlay. Then I started going to Spiritualist Church, but I stopped going because I felt that I needed to master the sit in my power. So I went through about a 12-week window of just sitting every day for spirit, and no spirit would come. I'd be like sitting on the park bench, and my date hadn't turned up, and that had happened every night. So then what happened was that started to eradicate my confidence further, and then I was sitting with an expectation of getting something. So recently, I've gone back to the Spiritualist Church. They welcome me back with open arms. Where have you been, Jason? Well, I've just been sitting in the power by myself. Why are you doing that? I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing that. So I'm back now around the group. But expectation is a big one, and I need to learn just sit with no expectation, and then stuff will happen. So, and then I don't know why I think it's because when I'm sitting, I'm constantly waiting for something to happen, and I just need to accept that that isn't the right way to do things. But it's funny, mediumship, because I really like your philosophy of keeping it simple, because since I've been on this journey, I've got so, and probably hosting a podcast interview and mediums doesn't help matters because every week I'm listening to a different method, which is probably it. I'm the most knowledgeable person probably who, is at the stage I'm at, but there is a tendency to overcomplicate this. But when you strip it back, it's actually, in theory, simple.
Mm. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And you will, like you say, that's another one, you know, that because I was warned of that early days, you know, once I did embrace it, I wanted to go to this course, that course, that course. And it's like, you need time to digest what you learn. And
Mm.
also, not every method or everybody's opinion will suit what's right for you. So you do have to find your own way within it as well. So, but simple, yes, because it is, you know, we are the essence of spirit. So, you know, it is a natural, but we make it so unnatural. And you say about sitting in the power, you take me back because I used to sit and I was like, I don't know. And then I'd listen to music. I'd still be in my mind because I've got such a butterfly mind.
Oh, I
And
have.
oh, and then expectations. Is something happening? No, it's not, you know. Then I'd go through the chakras and doing all these different methods. I was so in my conscious mind. I weren't even allowing the presence of spirit to be felt, you know, but I had to go
Mm.
through that. And then see now if I do sit, I sit in silence. Yeah. Again, like you say, with no expectations. If I get anything, receive anything, that's good. If I don't, it doesn't matter. It's just being in that presence to build up that relationship.
What role do the chakras play in mediumship?
And to be truthful, I don't really go into all that now with chakras. And some people, please, this isn't something to be offensive. I mean, obviously, you've got like your base chakras, you've got the colours, you've got you go all through the seven. But obviously, they say the third eye, which is the clairvoyance. But then you obviously have the throat chakra. You know, I don't, to be truthful, Jason, I don't really practice all of that now. But I did when I learned Indian head massage, reflexology. I had to kind of look into all that aspect to do with the
Mm.
energy. But they do say that some talk of the when we communicate with the spirit is through the solar plexus, you know, through this the center, which is solar plexus. But there's a lot more into all the um, chakras, really. But I'm skipping over it because I don't practice it anymore. I just know
Okay.
when, yeah, I know when spirit works with me, I feel the emotion from the heart and and work from
That's
that.
what I've been trying to do with is just focus on the heart
Yes.
and do nothing more necessarily.
And some would say it's from the soul, but I think soul, the heart, you know, that's another big, everybody has their own terminology. But I often teach students to just visualize moving their awareness to the heart, feel the presence and allow spirit to lead. And it just tries to take you out of that conscious mind too much. Because we're always nosy, aren't we? We're trying to work it all out and, you know.
We are, and it's I recently a lot of pennies have been dropping, and I feel like I'm starting to join up a lot of dots in a lot of ways, which is interesting. Moving on then, lastly, um, obviously, I want to get just some more general advice that you would give to people trying to develop on their mediumship, groups and support to one side. We've obviously talked about sensitivity. We've
Yeah.
skimmed over chakras. We're coming back to now find out any last advice we can. Okay, I want to get the maximum value speaking to you, Shelley. I know that everyone's going to be thinking, come on, Jason, ask some more questions.
Oh, where do I start? One thing I will say again, whatever you do, enjoy the journey.
Mhm.
Enjoy it. You know, because I often joke with students saying, enjoy the communication, enjoy it. It's a celebration of life. What a privilege it is to be able to help the spirit world, but also make a difference in this world as well. And I said, the amount of times I see students look in pain, you know, and I think, I must have looked the same because I so wanted, not egotistically, I just so wanted to get it right for the spirit world and so wanted to get it right for the person in front of me. I was actually hindering my mediumship, and I must have looked like it was painful. So that's what I say to them: try to enjoy it, because if you relieve yourself of the expectations and just say, I'm just going to do the best I can, That's all you can do in that time. And as long as you're coming from the heart and you're doing it for the right reasons, we're human at the end of the day. You
Hmm.
know, our human mind's going to interfere with the process. And, it takes practice. So I say, please do try to enjoy it. And also another one, because again, this is talking from my own life experiences within my spiritual journey, is I'd go and do a service, I'd enjoy it, of course, and so on. So the one thing I would be thinking about and having words with spirit about, having words, that sounds awful, I would be sending thoughts to the spirit about, is if I got one thing wrong. I'd I'd forget all the magical moments and all where you've moved somebody or the philosophy, and the one thing I focus on is the one thing I got wrong. And I thought about that,
Mm.
and I actually got messages with spirit about that. I mean, they'd help me, and I realised, that don't obviously be blasé about if you don't get it right. And yes, do look at it in a very positive way. How could I have got that better spirit? And we'll work with that and so on. But embrace the triumphs of what you did get right and what difference you made. As Gordon Higginson would say, our pioneer, that was the president of the college
Mm.
and of the Spiritual National Union. If I touch one person in that service, I've done my job. I've been of service for spirit, you know.
Hmm.
So, we don't actually realize sometimes how powerful our words are and that communication. We don't realize how much it's life changing. I know it has been for me, as I'm sure it has you, Jason.
Yeah.
Um, and it is a privilege, but must enjoy it. Life's to be enjoyed, not endured. Yes, it's a roller coaster. Yes, we have challenges in life, but they shape us. And every experience, every challenge in our life will obviously it helps with our soul growth and us as a person, but it will help within our mediumship and the compassion, the empathy. And when you have somebody in front of you that's been through an experience, you'll know, because you do, because you've been through that experience.
Mm.
Everything's a learning.
I
Does that answer
agree.
your question? Yeah.
Well, do you know what, Shelley? I think we covered a lot today, and I think it's been really nice to have you on to hear about your experiences, your journey, and I think you've given some really beautiful, heartfelt advice. And I love the keep it simple. I think you need. I think we need to coin that phrase for you, Shelley.
Thank you. Yeah, I do. I do think we overcomplicate it because it's a very natural thing, isn't it? But we do. It's our human mind. It's human nature, isn't it, to complicate things.
It is. It is. Well, Shelley, that leaves me to say thank you so much for coming onto the Soul Sync podcast.
It's been a real pleasure, Jason, and thank you for inviting me. I love talking about it all. It's very passionate.
Thank you.